In this update, this weather is about to make a complete transformation. Let's broaden the view this afternoon and take a look at the big picture on the North American view. And we've got a pretty significant ridge that's going to be building back across a good part of the West and British Columbia. That's allowed a trough to dive into the middle of the country and actually brought its coolest conditions so far this fall across eastern portions, central and eastern two-thirds of the U.S. We also have the remnants of Tropical Storm Philippe out here in the Atlantic. That's actually going to be pushing back and impacting New England later on tonight into tomorrow. And we also have Tropical Storm Lydia out here in the Eastern Pacific and Invest 99, and both of those have indications to kind of recurve and head back and could actually reemerge back here into the Gulf of Mexico. Here's the latest update from the National Hurricane Center on Tropical Storm Lydia. It is a 65-mile-per-hour tropical storm, is moving west northbound about 5 miles an hour. A lot of indications, and what typically happens in the month of October is you tend to get these recurves from these eastern Pacific storms as they get caught up in the subtropical jet stream. And most indications is going to have this strengthening into a hurricane, but then making landfall in Mexico and likely could actually reemerge, at least the remnants reemerge back in here into the Gulf of Mexico. So if you are new to the channel and like detailed weather breakdowns, hit the subscribe button and you're in. You get all my daily content on this channel, and I would love to reach 210,000 subscribers by the end of the month, and you can help me get there by subscribing to the channel and following all my daily content. So let's take a look at the setup, because we've had that first initial cold front come through, and you can see it's all the way down here in Brownsville now, clearing into a good part of Florida, and it's continued to push in southbound. And back behind it, we've got extremely dry air, and that pushes the radiational cooling further south, and we're looking at widespread freezes in a lot of the areas in the middle of the country tonight, with what the good part of the country is seeing their coolest conditions so far this season. Here is the remnants out here into the Atlantic from Tropical Storm Philippe. That's getting closer to the northeast, and that's going to bring more heavy rain for them, some higher wind gusts as well, as this is going to be making impact over the next 24 to 36 hours. If you take a look at the overall water vapor imagery, that's kind of the only game in town right now, as far extreme portions of the northeast into New England from Philippe, and especially into Maine, they just get pounded again with very heavy rainfall. Compliments of Philippe continue to push its precipitation back into that region, while the rest of the country is just kind of experiencing that dry air, and that will bring the coolest conditions so far this season. Look at the temperatures tonight, and a lot of areas are going to be experiencing widespread 30s across a good part of the middle of the country. And some of the coolest conditions, even down here in Oklahoma, dropping down to into the 40s, into Arkansas, into Mississippi, into Alabama, into Georgia, and Utah. There's not too many areas that don't get to feel the effects of this first initial cool shot for October standards. So it's going to be a welcome relief, and a good crisp fall air is going to be in the mist, and it's going to be extremely nice really for a good part of the country. Besides what's happening up here in the Great Lakes into the northeast, we've got a powerful low pressure center. Most of the instability is actually out here in Ontario and Quebec, and they're actually getting heavy snow in some parts of the region, but that's going to allow those temperatures to really cool off and maximize, at least for a couple of more days. Then we'll be watching, all eyes will be watching out of this storm system coming out of Alaska, out of the Aleutian Islands. That is going to be diving southeast, and that will likely set the stage for a snowstorm coming up for portions of the Rockies as we get deeper in the middle of next week, while we'll be watching the Eastern Pacific storms and the invest out here into the Eastern Pacific likely starting to cross over, as another powerful cold front will be diving southbound. So on the surface map, you can actually kind of see that a little bit better. You got this 996 low draped across the northern portions of the Great Lakes, especially back in here to Ontario and Quebec, with some of that could be some snow flying. We've got Lydia out here continuing to strengthen, likely becoming a hurricane. Then it makes landfall into parts of Mexico here, and then we'll be watching Invest 99 that likely doesn't become a storm, but it will be bringing some heavy rain back into a good part of Mexico here, and this would likely start to cross over, at least the remnants of it, into the Gulf of Mexico. So the setup on the temperatures as we go into that Tuesday timeframe, so we still have the cooler air complements of that low pressure center highlighted over Ontario, and we've got the remnants of Lydia and Invest 99 plus that new storm that's going to be coming in. So before that, you're going to be rapidly warming up big time. So a lot of these areas I mentioned, it's dry. So when it's dry, you drop down, pretty fast at night, but you heat up pretty fast in the daytime. And that's exactly what's going to happen, at least for a couple of days before the reinforcing shot comes in with this strong system from the northwest. So here's the latest model guidance as some of the remnants might try to cross over from that that Eastern Pacific storm and the Invest 99. Some model members actually have this crossing over. So I do feel at least the remnants of it will be crossing over into the Gulf of Mexico. And then we'll have to be watching, say, the timing of this cold front. But a lot of guidance actually has this pushing off into a good part of the southeast, and especially Florida again. And this will likely come up the East Coast, heading back to New England for next weekend, if you can believe that. So before that, we've got a pretty big event happening going into Thursday, Friday timeframe, because that's a significant trough that's going to be diving in from the Aleutian Islands. Now that's going to be kind of wounding up, tapping into these warm conditions out ahead of this pretty significant trough coming in, right? So that's going to bring likely even a reinforcing shot and even a little bit colder temperatures than what you're experiencing this week. And then, of course, we'll be watching the remnants down here into the Eastern Pacific. So before that, this is Thursday, likely your warmest day out ahead of the cold front. A lot of times you get that with compressional type heating. So you're going to see a rapid temperature drop across a good part of the Rockies, especially in Idaho, into Wyoming, back into Montana. I would say, portions of the Rockies, especially, western sides of Colorado, especially going to be getting some heavier snows with this particular setup, and likely might be classified as their first maybe big snowstorm of the season back for that region. But out in front of that, we've got a lot of instability. We've got definitely some warm temperatures. You're going to be cranking up the thermometer. And with that clash in temperatures, we could spell trouble, some severe storms. So here's the surface map. So you got the snow likely starting to fly back into that Thursday timeframe as your cold front will be elongated across this region. Now this could, some indications it could actually start to slow down. And if that does come to fruition, this could set the stage for some pretty heavy rain across this region, across Nebraska, into Iowa, into portions of southern portions of Wisconsin, into Illinois, back into Indiana and Ohio here. There is possibly the remnants of Invest 99 here with another area low pressure. I think a lot of shear is going to be happening in the Gulf of Mexico. I don't think this is going to be coming back and regenerating into a tropical type entity, but it is going to be bringing some heavier rains, especially along the coastal regions and especially into portions of Florida as we get into that Thursday timeframe. And this will likely start heading up the East Coast as we get deeper into the weekend. So here's your dew points. We got the warm sector out ahead of it. It's not terribly too much like off the charts intensity or anything like that. So I am expecting some severe weather, but it shouldn't be like too bad as we get into that Thursday time frame. We've got dew points in the middle 60s, but we are going to be having to watch some areas, especially into eastern portions of Oklahoma and getting into Arkansas. Here's the preliminary on the severe weather front as we get deeper into next week. So by Wednesday, that system from the northwest should be getting a little bit closer, tapping in, have that lift associated with it, tapping into some of that energy. So we'll be having to watch these areas that are likely going to be impacted for Kansas and to Missouri and to Arkansas into Oklahoma. Those are the areas that have to be kind of on high alert, especially as we go into that Wednesday, especially Thursday. Looks like to be the most significant day on the severe weather front as we go into next week. And as that cold front will continue to push up the East Coast, this would be that low pressure. All this is kind of coming together for the East Coast again. Then we've got the remnants of Invest 99, and then that will just be traveling up the coast again for next weekend with more heavy rain. So on the surface map, here it is on Saturday. We've got the low pressure center locked over a good part of Wisconsin into Michigan here, back into Indiana and Ohio. This will really get its act together. Look at the tight isobars. That has some pretty significant winds associated with it. It's got its own cold core as well. That's going to be coming across, and we'll be having to watch, of course, the remnants of 99, and that's obviously going to bring that cooler condition. So we've got that significant trough that's going to be moving in, a reinforcing shot. You've got the cooler conditions now. You're probably expecting a rapid warm up for a couple of days, and then another cool shot, even likely a little bit maybe even colder than what you're experiencing right now for a good part of the eastern 2/3 of the country. So that'll be on the cooler side. It looks like the weekends are likely going to be the coolest times of the week, and we'll be having to watch these areas and what a little bit can be concerning, especially if these kind of merge together. So we'll have to watch all the timing of this and how it all plays out. But we're watching that significant system coming in out of the Great Lakes, and plus the remnants coming up the East Coast. We could have another formidable low draped across a good part of the Northeast and New England for another heavy rain event across these regions, and that would be for next weekend, because look at the Climate Prediction Center already highlighting that for the 14th. That would be next Saturday. And remember, Saturday is also that partial eclipse. Eclipse is going to be happening on that October 14th. The partial eclipse is starting to originate off the Oregon coast somewhere around, I think it's 9:12 in the morning Pacific time, and then it's going to be traversing northwest to southeast, come across Texas, and going into that maybe I think 12-13 time frame. So I'll be talking about it a little bit more as we get deeper into the week, but that's going to be the partial eclipse that's going to be coming up on your Saturday time frame. But beyond that, heading into next week, there's that reinforcing shot. So the Pacific Northwest stays on the warmer side. They stay well above average, while we have these storms really highlighted with the rapid warm up and then the cool down again for the weekend. For the eastern 2/3 of the US remain on the cooler side, and the eastern 2/3 remains on the wetter side. So with all these systems, these troughs and these remnant low pressures and these eastern Pacific storms, and the that's just going to be inundating a good part of the southeast and the northeast again. So look for heavy rain as we get deeper into the middle of the week, going into next weekend, especially along the east here. And beyond that, going into that middle October, even into that third week of October, you kind of see the same type general setup. So the west stays on the warmer side. You see those well above average temperature anomalies, while most of the eastern 2/3, especially the Ohio Valley, the Mid-Atlantic, and the Northeast, remain on the chillier side, going forward. So guys, I appreciate you guys watching. Do like this video, definitely hit the subscribe button, and make sure to tune in for my winter forecast after this video, and catch me next update while I protect you for and after the storm.